All right, hour number 2 here and the Breakfast of Champions. If you are joining us on the live stream, we are on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Keegan Hartman alongside me, Brandon Anthony, live in Las Vegas. Hour number 2. We don't normally do this. This is kind of a new thing for us, but we were excited. We have an opportunity to interview one of the best in the business. His stock has definitely risen. He's become a more prominent name, really a very credible source, a very reliable source in the NFL world. You can find him and follow him on Twitter at My Sports Update. He joins us live from the East Coast, right?
I'm actually on the West Coast for the
Oh,
draft.
okay.
Yeah,
You are in
I'm actually
attendance.
right around where you guys are. I'm not in Las Vegas, but I'm on the West Coast as well for this.
Okay, sounds
Sweet,
good. Well, you
sweet.
woke up at the same time as us. You can find him and follow him again at My Sports Update. Ari Meirov. Ari, how you been, man?
Well, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. What a crazy first round of the draft. I mean, it's been it was. I think everyone came into the night expecting the unexpected, and then boy, did we get that! It was quite the night. One of the best drafts that I can remember, at least in my head.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you right now. First and foremost, I want a just one word, maybe two words of reaction to obviously the biggest storyline, something that was completely out of left field. The AJ Brown trade, the Tennessee Titans wideout, going to the Philadelphia Eagles for the 18th overall pick and a third round pick from Philly. Two words, or as short as you can, sum it up. What was your reaction?
I think the one word is just chaotic. I mean, it was weird because like all day long, we were all kind of hearing the Eagles wanted to move up, which they did, by the way, earlier in the draft to get Jordan Davis. But the belief was a move up either for a pass rusher or a wide receiver in Jameson Williams.
Uh-huh.
Lo and behold, Howie Roseman all day long was talking to John Robinson in Tennessee about a trade for AJ Brown. And quietly throughout it all, they were working on a contract extension as well.
Wow.
And it basically got done right before the draft. And it was basically done, but it was also kind of dependent on the board falling the way Tennessee wanted, which it did. They got Traylon Burks, but they ended up making the trade, and it was quite chaotic. And that's really what it was. We all came into the draft thinking Deebo Samuel is the big name wide receiver, could be on the move. Lo and behold, it's a guy who is his close friend. They share an agent, but he's the one who
Mhm.
gets moving. He's the one who gets paid and gets to be on a new team, not Deebo Samuel.
And speaking of same representation, we sat down and kind of talked with Garrett Wilson yesterday. He was taken 10th overall by the New York Jets. He is also represented by the same agent. And a little backstory to that, I don't know if you can provide any merit to it, but the rumor was in the media workroom was that the Jets were working on a deal with the 49ers throughout the duration of the day, maybe leading up to that 10th pick. And ultimately, it was a matter of compensation in which the two parties decided to kind of go separate ways. And the Jets ended up taking the slot man, the speedster out of Ohio State, and Garrett Wilson. Can you provide any sort of like clarity to that conversation surrounding Deebo Samuel and kind of how it didn't come to fruition?
Yeah, I don't really know if it's working on a deal. I know both sides definitely talked. I know that the 49ers had multiple offers, including all of them having a first round pick involved, and in some cases more. However, it doesn't sound like Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch are interested in moving Debo Samuel. They want to make this work. Now, the reason why Debo wants to get out, it's kind of unknown right now. Like we all saw the Debo's cryptic tweet. Everyone who's reporting the stuff doesn't know what they're talking about. Only I know. Well, he's the one who put himself in this position by allowing the trade request to go out. Remember, it's not like it was reported by someone in the organization. He went out and told Jeff Darlington that I want out. So he already put this on the table and it's out there for the public. But the reasoning, he's kind of keeping that private. So I don't know the reason why he wants to get out. There was significant interest throughout the last couple of weeks since the trade request came in. The Jets were obviously the most logical destination.
Mhm.
I don't know if there were actual serious conversations going on where it was like serious back and forth. It just feels like the 49ers never wanted to fully engage unless an offer all of a sudden came in that was just insane. Let's just say 2 first round picks, but that was not happening. So none of that happened. It doesn't look like they engaged, and a trade just never happened. The 49ers want to make it work with them.
Now, if there's one man who I think two first-round picks would make excited, not only would it be, the front office of the San Francisco 49ers, they would be elated to take two first-round picks off of someone's hands, but the residential 49er fan that I know sitting next to me, Mr. Brandon Anthony. Brandon, did you have any questions for Ari in terms of like the whole Debo outlook or even, basically that situation right now?
Yeah, Ari, I just had one question I was kind of wondering about in terms of like contract negotiations, because it sounds like from the sounds of it, Parag Marate, the contract guy for San Francisco, sat down with him, and there's rumors he either offered 19 million or something of that nature, and that's when Debo Samuel kind of went on his little unfollowing spree on Instagram and everything. And then there was Debo coming out on Twitter saying, or it was some sort of live video saying they never offered him anything. That was the same one where A.J. Brown was mentioned in it as well when he was on the phone with him. So that whole thing just is kind of interesting. Do you know any more details about like his initial contract negotiations? Were there even contract negotiations, or did he get lowballed, or do you have any more details regarding that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how far talks on a contract have gone, if at all. And the 49ers have historically done a pretty good job of having negotiations that leak out for the most part, where and the other part is usually whenever negotiations start, it always starts usually, let's just say it's a receiver. The team doesn't just show up and say, okay, 25 million a year, let's just do this. Usually they start off low and try to work it up. And usually the agent understands that and doesn't really let the client know this is what's going on because the client doesn't want to feel offended. So I don't know if that maybe the agent did go ahead and tell Debo, hey, they offered us 15 a year. How do you feel about that? And Debo just exploded and said, I'm done with this. Maybe that happened. I don't really know if the contract talk started, if at all again. But the basic, situation right now, it's pretty simple. We know the numbers and where it's at. If he wants to stay there, which is a big part of this, I don't really know if he wants to stay. I don't know if the money makes a difference then, because that's also been a rumor to all of this that money doesn't make a difference. But if it comes down to money, we know what the structure is now. Take that AJ Brown deal. That's the deal that he wants to get. It's the same agent. Put it together. That's the deal he would want to get in order to stay. The question really becomes if the money matters to him and if he wants to stay with the 49ers. As if I'm a fan right now, it would be like, why in the world would he want to leave? If it's about the running back part, fine. Don't make him running back. But maybe he loses his valuable, whatever it is, figure it out and stay there. If it's about moving to the East Coast and not being on the West Coast, fine. I don't really know how you could resolve that. I don't know what the things about not being in San Francisco, what's the problem with that. But whatever it is, they're going to have to try to figure it out internally. But if it's about money, the layout is out there. It's the A.J. Brown contract. That's what he's going to want. That's what the 49ers should be offering. And if that's the case, we'll see what happens the next couple of weeks and months.
Again, we're speaking with Ari Meirov at My Sports Update via Twitter, PFF's insider, NFL analyst. So all those trades aside, there is another guy that there has been talks about, but the market has remained relatively dry on the quarterback front, and I'm sure you know who I'm alluding to, Mr. Baker Mayfield out of Cleveland. Is there really a forecast for movement on his front or any sort of interest? Was there any sort of previous engagement with the Cleveland Browns in terms of Mayfield's services? I know right now it's kind of just a very dry front from what has been talked about, but could you provide any clarity to his market and maybe what could be transpiring?
Yeah, I think, coming into the draft, I think everyone was like, you know what, $18.8 million fully guaranteed. There's a draft of a couple of quarterbacks who might go in the first round. Let's see what happens in the first round, then we'll come back to this. But the fact that only one quarterback went off the board last night, guys like Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Desmond Ridder are all still on the board going into night number 2, it kind of complicates things with Baker because you either were hoping that something happened in the first round, the team doesn't get one, ends up coming back to you in Cleveland and tries to get Baker, or all those guys get quarterbacks and Baker is kind of stuck. Right now, we're basically in the same situation that we were in last night where Pittsburgh filled their quarterback need. They got Kenny Pickett, but teams like a Carolina, for example, maybe in Atlanta, maybe a Detroit, all those teams are Seattle. They all could still get a quarterback now in the second round, and they all have pretty high picks there in the second round to try to get a Malik Willis or a Desmond Ridder or some of these other guys. So I feel like we're back in the same situation. But as for Baker, the Browns are in a situation where the 18.8 is all fully guaranteed, like I said.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like any team's going to bite on that. And that's really where the problem comes in. So a team's going to have to give up a draft pick. It's probably going to be a mid to late round pick for Baker Mayfield. And the question then becomes really, what is the money situation? If you remember last year, Teddy Bridgewater was traded from Carolina to Denver. Carolina ate more than half of the salary in order to make the trade happen. So I feel like it would have to be one of those situations. But I think we have to wait until tonight is over and see where all these quarterbacks end up. And then we'll get a better feel of where the Baker Mayfield market is. I would probably keep an eye still on Carolina. Again, Carolina's a team that really, that entire coaching staff has to win right now. They have to take a step forward. They took an offensive tackle last night, Ike Ekwonu, regarded by most people as the safest prospect in this draft. Sliding right into the left side, you have Taylor Moton on the right side. They added Austin Corbett in free agency, Bradley Bozeman in free agency. That offensive line has gotten much better this offseason. Maybe add a quarterback who has a chip on his shoulder and try to win right now in the NFC South. We'll see what happens tonight, but I think we'll get a clearer picture once these next two rounds come to an end.
Well, you bring up a good point, kind of segueing into the quarterback class right now. First and foremost, a two-parter on the quarterback class. Were you kind of shocked with the one quarterback being taken, that being Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh, staying home, playing in his backyard with the Steelers, or was there expectation that there was going to be any sort of movement up, down, staying put to maybe draft a quarterback? Was it in the works for any other teams that were potentially interested?
Yeah, it's interesting because really coming into the draft, I always felt like the Steelers liked the top. They really liked the top four quarterbacks. They were fine with all of them, but I felt like they always liked Malik over Kenny just slightly, and they had a chance to take either of them, and they ended up picking Kenny. So clearly that was their preference. But I think really the entire first round with these quarterbacks, it kind of proved to us what we saw earlier in free agency, where the way the NFL looked at this quarterback class is simply it's not a special quarterback class. And the way we know that is look at what the Commanders gave up for Carson Wentz. Look at how the Colts were aggressive to try to get a Matt Ryan. Look at all these other veteran quarterbacks who were moved, and you were like, wait, why not wait for the draft? Well, clearly people in NFL circles weren't that high on this class. I mean, who knows where Kenny Pickett even goes if it wasn't at 20 to the Steelers? Does he go in the first round? So clearly the quarterback and the way all these mock drafts went, the NFL, the way you look at the quarterback class, it clearly isn't as high as some other people did. I know a lot of people were talking about the whole fifth-year option element with quarterbacks going in the first round. The fact that the fifth year now is fully guaranteed no matter what, the NFL made that change in the last CBA. Mm-hmm. A lot of teams are starting to feel like it really doesn't make a difference anymore to us. You know why? Because if we feel like the quarterback is a superstar, we're going to extend him after the third year. If we don't feel like he's a superstar, then we could just decline the option like we just saw of Daniel Jones. And then if he plays well, we'll just use the franchise tag, which is a few $1 million more. So the whole element of the fifth-year option used to be a very big topic with quarterbacks. It happened with Teddy Bridgewater and Lamar Jackson. The difference back then was that it wasn't fully guaranteed. It was just guaranteed for injury. Now it's fully guaranteed no matter what. When it comes to quarterbacks, I feel like the NFL teams no longer care about that.
Interesting. Brandon, did you have anything to add to that real quick?
Yeah, not really more on that front, but there was another quarterback that's been thrown out there that I wanted to shoot out. And of course, 49er fans. So I'm just kind of curious about Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of his trade market in round 2. Is there a potential we can see something tonight, or what's going on with that? I know it's kind of similar to the Baker Mayfield situation. So that's just something I've been thinking about as well.
Yeah, it's a bit similar. The only differences probably is one, he's obviously recovering from surgery on his shoulder. The 49ers are hopeful that he'll be back to throwing by June. And on top of that, his money is all not guaranteed. So you could possibly just tweak that contract around to try to make it work guarantee-wise. It wouldn't be as much as Baker Mayfield's potentially, but overall, again, it just really depends on preference. First of all, if a team likes Baker or Jimmy Garoppolo, let's say a team like Carolina, if they were actually going for a veteran quarterback, which one do they prefer? But then again, it's kind of similar where it's like, okay, let's just see where these quarterbacks go tonight. And the teams that have a hole, we'll see what happens. But the only difference, again, one more difference, I guess, with these two guys is that San Francisco is kind of comfortable of just waiting. I mean, there's no reason to rush this. Everyone loves Jimmy there in San Francisco. George Kittle could talk days about him. The teammates love him. So it's like they don't have to trade him. Unlike Cleveland, where you have Baker, who clearly is done with Cleveland. You have Deshaun Watson in the building. There's no way he could walk into training camp into that building. So it would feel like there would be more of an urgency to get something done with Baker and now with Jimmy. I mean, if something happens, if an offer comes in for Jimmy, yeah, sure, they'll do it. But if nothing happens, they're perfectly fine with bringing him into training camp.
Ari, I think I got one more question before we let you go, but I want to thank you for sitting down with us and talking with us, giving us some insight today. One more question in regards to night number 2, heading into tonight with the quarterback class still being rather dense. What's kind of the expectation on that front? Who do you think is there going to be any sort of movement, any sort of urgency to kind of move up and get a guy that maybe one of these quarterback deprived teams are in love with? What are your expectations going into tonight as far as the quarterback front, and what are maybe some teams to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I really don't know how much trading up is even necessary. Maybe it is to get in front of a team you think might be looking at a quarterback, but I probably want to just keep an eye on Atlanta specifically, because you look at that team. This is a team that obviously went all out for Deshaun Watson and failed. They traded Matt Ryan just for a 3rd-round pick. They signed Marcus Mariota on a team-friendly contract. I think he only has $6.7 million guaranteed in his contract. And then Mariota also has an injury history. So it's like, who's going to be there if something happens to him? So it's like, I feel like a team like Atlanta, I thought there was a chance maybe they go there at 8. Clearly that was too rich for them. But this is a team that has 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks. They have capital in this tonight in this draft. I feel like they are a quarterback team tonight, potentially. Could be a Malik Willis. I know Matt Corral is a name that has been linked very heavily to them. So I would definitely take a look at Atlanta. And then the other teams, a team like Seattle maybe. I don't think they were heavy on any of these quarterbacks, not in the first round for sure, but possibly in the second round. They're another team who has 2 second-round picks tonight. So those are the teams probably to keep an eye on when it comes to the quarterback market. And you never know. Maybe there's a surprise in there. Tennessee. This is a team that obviously just traded A.J. Brown. Ryan Tannehill will be 35 very soon. He has no guaranteed money left next season. His last performance was a pretty awful one in the playoffs against Cincinnati. Maybe they go, and they also don't have a viable backup quarterback option right now on their roster. So maybe they become a potential sneaky team for a quarterback in this draft. They traded down with the Jets actually last night to get an extra second-round pick. So I'll keep an eye on them as well.
All right, and one just real quick, a bold prediction for tonight's round 2 and 3. You got any sort of bold prediction heading into tonight?
I'm not a big predictions person, but let's see. I really interesting. You know what? I'm gonna go with Detroit, possibly also looking at the quarterbacks. I'm gonna put. I don't know if that's really bold or not, but I think honestly, I feel like Tennessee taking a quarterback is probably bold, but Tennessee or Detroit taking a quarterback tonight will be mine. I mean, I don't know if that's bold for you guys. I'm not a big predictions person, as you could probably tell from my Twitter account, but one of those teams will take a quarterback tonight. How about that?
All right. Sounds good, man. He is Ari Meirov. You can find him and follow him on Twitter at MySportsUpdate. He's been keeping me and as well as thousands in the loop in terms of what's the next move to happen. Hey, man, I was refreshing Twitter all night, just seeing what you tweeted. And I was like, oh, there you go. And then somebody would point to me, and I was like, oh, Ari says this. So, hey, pretty insightful on your front, and we appreciate it out here, man. We thank you for sitting down and taking the time to answer some questions. You're always welcome, my friend.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me, and best of luck there in Las Vegas. I'm sure you guys are having a blast.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
man.
Thank you. He is Ari Meirov. Man, just some insightful stuff from Ari.
Yeah,
of course, a lot of crazy movement going on throughout the duration of the draft. I'm curious to see who's going to move up and make that first move for the quarterbacks.
I think we have the potential to see a lot of quarterbacks go in the second round potentially with all these quarterback needy teams at the front.
Definitely a lot of movement. Crazy night. We could be in for a good one. I don't know, man. I'm excited to see what goes on and what transpires, but man, Ari's on top of it, dude. That guy is sharp. I mean, in every single front, he's got ins with majority of the 32 teams, I would venture to say, and a well-decorated, a very famous name of the tweet machine, and just a very insightful human being, very kind human being. So we do thank him. All right, well, with that being said, I kind of want to take a little bit of a tiny break, just a little bit of a music outro here to kind of reset for us and kind of gather on how we want to basically break down what was just told to us in terms of the expectations heading into rounds 2 and 3. So we're going to step aside real quick for a quick little music break. But when we come back, we're going to kind of break down what Ari said and maybe just kind of agree, disagree maybe on some of those predictions. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to the Breakfast of Champions, hour number 2. We're on the way.
Well, boys, we hit the jackpot this time.
All right. So after that is basically in the bottom stretch here. We're going to keep it short and sweet, but kind of a lot to digest as Ari Meirov just joined us on the show. at My Sports Update on Twitter. A lot on the receiver front, a lot on the quarterback front, a lot of moves, some expectations going into tonight's, round 2 and round 3. Wow. It's crazy. I mean, he broke down the contract structure. It's cool to get insight from people that are kind of boots on the ground for those teams.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Just see how those break down. It's just super interesting to listen to. I want to ask you, what do you think about the quarterback situation? Some of his bold predictions, Tennessee, Detroit, kind of looking at some quarterbacks. What do you think?
I think I definitely heard the Tennessee one and was like, that would be definitely interesting, considering Ryan Tannehill's in Tennessee still, and has improved ever since he's been there. It's not the old Miami Ryan Tannehill anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, is Tannehill the guy for the future for Tennessee? That's the big question. But I just don't know. I kind of agree with Ari. He was kind of talking about just the quarterbacks and how they're viewed by the NFL front offices in this draft. They're just not as strong. I don't know if this is the draft. If this is a really strong quarterback class, then I would say sure for Tennessee take, someone to replace Ryan Tannehill in the future. But I don't know. I feel like you're almost better with Ryan Tannehill. So we'll see if Tennessee goes quarterback. I'm sure Ari has heard stuff about that. So there's a possibility, of course. Atlanta, too. I definitely can see them with Mariota going after a quarterback, drafting a guy, Mariota being a bridge. So it'll be interesting. I definitely think we could see a lot of quarterbacks going in the second round early with a lot of these quarterback-needy teams at the top of the second round.
Yeah.
So I think we could for sure see some movement. It's just a matter of which team feels they want to draft a guy.
I don't want to bet the house on anything, and I don't really want to be a betting man, but I saw that FanDuel, move the odds for the Vikings. It was like plus 5,000 up to plus 450, 350 to draft Malik Willis. As much as I don't want to do it, I kind of like it. I kind of like it because I think about, we talked about it on the Hot Corner. Shout out, shameless plug. Shout out to the boys. We even talked about it with Jack. I'm sorry. We talked about it with Jack, but still shout out. We're shamelessly
shout out to
plug the Hot Corner,
Yeah.
Look, if you pair Malik with a above average offensive line, a wide receiving core that is actually a good rotational receiving core, as well as a power runner like Dalvin Cook, if anything goes wrong, it's on Malik. It's not on. I don't know about
the Vikings offensive line, but
but is it Liberty's offensive line? It's a professional
offensive line. But it's not the greatest.
It pretty much balances out relatively. But still, I think he has the tools to thrive in that.
I don't think he'd be starting right away.
Well, yeah, obviously you invested too much in Cousins.
It'd be Kirk Cousins
until he screws up.
For like 2 more years, I think.
Until he screws up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be in the same situation as, I guess Patrick didn't really step in the time of Alex Smith screwing up. I think it was more so injury. Well, no, he did outshine. Really, the tough injuries didn't come till the back end of Alex Smith's career, and it's unfortunate, but that's kind of how that played out. I think he could be under an apprenticeship as long as he doesn't take the tangibles that Kirk Cousins plays with, because that's the reason you draft him in the first place.
Well, yeah, we were talking about on the Hot Corner just kind of the best landing spots for Malik Willis, and me and Logan kind of both agreed that the best way to get a quarterback implemented in the NFL is to start him right away. So there's that too. I mean, could potentially him sitting behind Kirk Cousins sort of ruin his ability to learn more? I mean, we saw it with Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith. I think that doesn't happen as often as that situation. That just happened to be a situation that happened that particular way where Mahomes learned a lot, is able to come in and lit the league on fire. But I don't know if that's going to be the same thing with Malik Willis. I think if Minnesota drafts him, I think it's just another situation where they're going to be keeping Malik on the bench, where he could be learning That's another way to look at it too. Versus if he goes to like Seattle, he most likely will be starting over Drew Lock. No offense, Drew Lock, MIZ.
MIZ.
But yeah, that's my take.
Look, I think wherever Malik goes, he's going to thrive. Obviously, aside from the Malik conversation, I want to kind of see where these other quarterbacks fall, because I think that's just as important and is going to be a big storyline heading into tonight. Obviously, the tail of the tape tonight is going to be the quarterback class and where they fall. But man, it's almost like Corral and Ritter are kind of neck and neck. I feel like that you could, in some respects.
You notice that no one's talking about Sam Howell.
Nobody's talking about Sam Howell. And somebody made the point, was it Daniel Jeremiah? I think I listened to the Move the Sticks podcast, and it was Jeremiah and Brooks talking about their last mock. And they said on the back end, obviously Detroit traded up and took Jamison Williams, but they had mocked Sam Howell to their later pick.
Detroit?
I think they had 31 or 32 on the back end yesterday originally, but they traded up. It might have been a little bit earlier, but had they not done that, potentially look at a guy like Sam Howell. And I was like, well, that actually kind of corresponds with what they've got. It kind of fits the bill. Basically be Mitchell Trubisky playing for another NFC North team. But
that's what my thoughts have been on Sam Howell this whole time. But, you know.
But it could bode well because it kind of seems like a system thing for them. I feel like it would fit the bill. He's got the build. A little bit more mobile than Trubisky from what I've seen. Got a little bit more of a competitive edge to him. I don't think he's that bad.
He's got a pretty strong arm, too.
Yeah, he does have a strong arm. He threw for 17,000 yards in high school. He had 17,000 all-purpose. He threw for 13,000. But still, my gosh, this guy does have an arm. I don't know. Maybe Sam Howell. Nobody is talking about him.
Yeah, we mentioned Matt Corral. We mentioned Desmond Ridder, and obviously Malik Willis. No one's talking about Sam Howell.
That's just interesting, dude. Real quick, and then we'll kind of close this out. Just kind of a short one because we got to get a move on with our day. But we'll talk about the receiver front. First and foremost, I didn't expect Jahan Dotson go to the Commanders.
That was a little shocking.
I didn't have him as high as everybody else.
Neither did I.
Everybody's board changes. I mean, I like guys like George Pickens. I like guys like Christian Wilson out of NDSU. You're welcome. Christian Watson.
You keep messing that up.
Hey, man, Wilson Watson. It's the fact that I'm a Broncos fan, and, we just so happen to get one of the biggest splashes of the offseason. That's why. I keep on
Lucky
thinking
you guys, man.
Imagine.
Couldn't be my team.
That is a good question. What did you think about what Ari had to say about Jimmy G in that whole front? What's your thought?
About the whole Jimmy G situation?
Yeah,
it makes sense. I figured they haven't moved him yet. I figure they're just holding on and waiting for the right opportunity. I personally think they should cut him before training camp. I disagree the fact that bringing him into training camp won't be a bad thing. I think it will be a bad thing if you have him and Trey Lance in the same locker room again, trying to compete for the starting job. Jimmy G's already given a farewell press conference per se after the NFC Championship game. I just feel like it'd be awkward. It's Trey Lance. There's been reports that he's given private indications that he was going to be the starter. But, of course, John Lynch denied that at his press conference on Monday. Besides the point, I think keeping Jimmy G, bringing him into training camp will be a distraction. I don't know if he's going to even show up to training camp, honestly. I think Jimmy G, the fact he wasn't at OTAs, granted it was his shoulder, but in previous years when he's gotten hurt, he's been at OTAs at least for the leadership standpoint, leadership with his teammates. The fact that he wasn't there kind of signals that he knows he's done with San Francisco. So we'll see what happens. But
could be interesting to watch. Could be interesting to monitor. I'll tell you one that I'm really curious to know about. That is Baker, because they did bring up a good point. Study under Baker with Wilson or with Watson. See, I get this Watson right. I don't get the other Watson right. Watson. Those two both staying in Cleveland, that would kind of be awkward. That'd probably be more awkward than Trey Lance and Jimmy G.
It'd be more awkward than Trey Lance and Jimmy G.
And really, I think it does come. I don't think there is a team out there right now that could take on Baker's services. But I seem to be the only guy who will also give Baker the benefit of the doubt. Look at who he's been coached by. Freddie Kitchens was a byproduct of a Love's truck stop. That dude could not coach a team. Hugh Jackson, which he had his ups and downs.
It's all right.
But he hasn't had the benefit of the doubt in terms of the coaching staff. He needs to go to a system that's going to help him to throw. Tampa Bay, why not? Why not Tampa Bay? Why not make a trade for him? Because after he's gone, or after I'm saying Brady, after
You
Brady's
think Brady and Baker in the same quarterback room would be a little bit...
You missed on Jimmy G when he was in New England, but I think this would be a hit because this would tone Baker Mayfield down. Baker has that competitive edge, and he shows that.
I don't think if I'm Baker Mayfield, personally, I don't think I'm going to want to go into a situation where I'm the backup. I personally think Baker Mayfield's good enough to be a starter. I don't think he's going to want to wait behind the GOAT for an opportunity. He's going to want to go somewhere where he can instantly go in and start. Yeah. And there's plenty of teams that have that opportunity for him. But if I'm Baker, I would want that.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if I was Baker, I would want that because that helps my stock in the future. You're learning from the greatest to ever do it. A 7-time Super Bowl champion. Like, come on. Yeah, this is the opportunity. You got to capitalize on it. And I understand that you probably won't get a chance to compete for the starting role this season. But you're picking even the greats have to sit one out. I mean, Brady didn't start until Bledsoe went out. I'm not insinuating that. Oh,
I just feel like Baker's been done dirty a little bit. Going from a starter.
Oh, I agree. 1,000%.
They bring in Deshaun Watson, and then all of a sudden he's going to get traded and be in a backup role. Yeah. I just feel like that's a little messed up.
1,000%. 1,000%. I don't know. We'll see. Real quick before we just kind of cap this one off. Bold prediction for tonight. Anything?
Don't really have too much. Maybe a trade up for a quarterback.
Yeah. Any teams you like? You got a top 3 to watch? Carolina was a good one.
Carolina. Maybe Atlanta. If there's quarterbacks going early, they can trade up from 43 a little bit.
The entire NFC South was a good one. And besides Tampa being the caveat, those guys, it's going to be a 3-leg. It's going to be a freaking race to see who gets what. I think that ultimately any sort of quarterback is going to go through Carolina, New Orleans, and Atlanta. All the guys that were pretty much in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes.
NFC South, yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think, and I think they all end up satisfied at the end of the night. I just don't know who's going to get to what first. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, with that being said, not really a full 2-hour show, but it was pretty fun. I mean, everything went smooth. Our Wi-Fi didn't go down. Not to say that it's probably going to go down tonight, but we had fun.
Hey, positive thoughts, Keegan.
Positive
thoughts.
As you like to say, I'm cautiously optimistic. After everything goes down tonight, yeah, it's Vegas time. I'm just trying to get through the day. That's all. All right. With that being said, Keegan Hartman, he is
Brandon Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. We're going to be back at you tonight. Make sure you catch the pre-show if you can, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Central time. We'll try to get the coverage up. We'll try to get to the place early. Hell, I might leave at noon. I don't know. We'll see. All right. It's been the Breakfast of Champions. We'll have this episode up later tonight. And, big shout out to Ari Meirov for joining us today. Find him and follow him at My Sports Update. Listen to that at the beginning, first 15 minutes. Great stuff, great insight. Everything you need to know about the contracts. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one.
Well, boys, we hit the jackpot this time.